Balance 100%. You have to be balanced. So you have to look at, am I exercising? Am I sleeping? Is my nutrition? If you don't start there, none of the nutrients are going to benefit you, right? It may help you offset a little bit of that, but they're not going to get you to the point that you need to be. The nutrients are what's going to put you over the top.
Welcome to C60 Health Connections. I am very excited about today's conversation. My friend, Dr. Anthony Capasso, is with us today, and we are going to talk all about C60 plus supplement stacking. We have never had this conversation before on this channel, so I'm excited to get into it. But before we start, let me give you a little bit of background about our guest. Dr. Anthony Capasso is an expert in anti-aging. He attended Ohio State University and graduated cum laude in '87 with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. In '93, he received his Doctor of Medicine degree from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He completed his medical residency in internal medicine at the University of Florida, Jacksonville campus. He was board certified by the ABIM in internal medicine in '98. Since graduating, he has worked with the University of Florida in Jacksonville as an associate medical professor. He entered private practice in '98 and has offices in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. In 2009, he was voted the #1 physician in Jacksonville Beach. He's also a national speaker for anti-aging medicine and one of the 4 founding members of Physicians Preferred Insurance Company. In addition to that, he has served as the official nutritionist for the Jacksonville Armada Professional Football Club. He is also the visionary behind Thin Med Spas. He has created a comprehensive approach to well-being, utilizing proven nutritional programs, protocols, and products. With 25 years of experience, Dr. Capasso has helped the lives of thousands of patients by developing and providing the best medically supervised lifestyle medicine through his Thin Med Spas. This conversation is going to be broad. We might cover everything from research to diet to nutrition to hormones to peptides to supplements to non-invasive treatments that you can do if you're concerned about anti-aging. So with that, Anthony, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time and your expertise and your willingness to share your vision for a healthy life at any age with all of our excited and eager to learn audience members.
Jess, thank you so much for having me today.
You and I spoke a couple weeks ago, and I said, hey, Anthony, I'm really curious because we do a lot of experimenting. Some people will call it in the biohacker space with our own bodies here at C60 Purple Power, but we're not doctors. So I wanted to get your take on what you're doing personally and what you're advising your patients, who many of them, as I understand, have aches and pains and fuzzy brains, and they're working to work through that as they age gracefully in life. So let's just start out of the gate because our context on this channel is healthy living, but obviously we make C60. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about C60 and how do you use it in your personal life and in your practice?
Sure. So absolutely love C60. As you know, I've been using it for many years. The biggest thing that I noticed initially when I first started using C60 was just the cognitive benefit and how my energy levels, especially thought process throughout the day, were so smooth. So that was one of the biggest things, and I was hooked ever since. What I do is use C60 in the morning. I'll put a tablespoon in my coffee with some other stuff that we'll talk about in a few minutes. That's right. I know I've got my C60 too, right?
C60 coffee.
Yeah. And absolutely love the combination. And the reason is I don't feel jittery with it. I don't get a crash off the coffee or the caffeine. So, that's been definitely a benefit. And exactly what I'm telling you right now is what I hear from my patients all the time is the biggest benefit that they see initially is how much better their cognitive is, their thought process, and memory. I mean, those are the things that I hear. So for me, it's great because when someone feels the result of an action, they're more likely to keep doing it and get the benefits from it.
That's wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing that. Now, thank you to you. I've been exposed to
Okay.
MitoBlast too. This is a product that you created to help support mitochondrial function. I'm trying to get a good picture of this in here. So, talk to us a little bit about why did you create this product, and how are you using this in conjunction with C60 and other supplements in your daily life?
Sure. So over 20 years ago, I created that supplement specifically for myself. I was just overworked, burned out. I was working many, many hours and wasn't sleeping. And at the time, I was coming out of my residency and I was moonlighting at another hospital. And I realized that I was just exhausted, tired. I wasn't able to play sports the way that I could with the energy. And interesting, I didn't do any caffeine at all during medical school or residency. I just didn't drink coffee. I love it
Oh,
now, but I
amazing.
just didn't drink it at the time, right? I didn't want to use caffeine as kind of a crutch, for that. So I started looking at how to increase my energy naturally. And I started reading over 20 years ago about how to improve mitochondrial function with nutrients. And so I started taking these nutrients, and I was looking at clinical studies, looking at the clinical doses of these. And within a very short period of time, I had, you know, my energy was better. Um, Cognitively, my endurance was better. And so I was like hooked. And I did this for several months, and I'm like, okay, I have to share this with my friends. I have to share this with my family. I have to share this with my patients as part of it. And the more that I read on mitochondria and what it does and how beneficial it is, it was like, well, this is the fountain of youth. I've found the fountain of youth, and all I need to do is to continue to focus on this. And when you look at all aspects of aging, all aspects of diseases, there's some form of mitochondrial dysfunction at its baseline. So that was the reason that I started it. And what I realized after being on it for decades now is that it really helped to improve my immune system, and I wasn't getting sick anymore. And prior to that, I would get 2 to 3 sinus infections a year, and I just don't get sick. I back-ended myself into all this, but it was the main reason that I went into more nutritional medicine. I realized that our health is really driven by what we do to ourselves. Our sleeping patterns, how we're managing our stress, and then the nutrients, and then obviously exercise plays a big role in that response. So for me, it was like, okay, this was that missing ingredient because I was eating right. My sleep wasn't very good, but nutrition was excellent, and I was exercising. And then this was like that rocket fuel. And I coined the term kind of exercise in a bottle way back when, because the interesting thing that I found was, I'm a fast twitch kind of quick sprinter type person. I'm not an endurance athlete. What I noticed is that my endurance improved and my wind improved as I started using it, and in a very short period of time. So it had all these crazy, incredible benefits for me. I read on mitochondrial stuff all the time, and I consider myself a mitochondrial expert just because this is something that I've focused on for many, many years. And to me, it's really part of that aging process. If you want to slow aging down, you better make sure your mitochondria are functioning at a high level.
Yeah. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because a lot of people ask us quite frequently, hey, if I'm taking C60, should I stop taking everything else? Can I stop taking my other vitamins and supplements? And it's one thing if we say no, keep doing it. It's another thing when somebody with your level of expertise and background and experience behind you has an opinion about that. So can you just share with us a little bit about why it's important to stack with the appropriate supplements and nutrients as you're aging, and just help us understand the importance around that?
Sure. So more isn't better. There's no doubt about that. But it's the right combinations of nutrients to get the response that you want. And our bodies are extremely complicated. It's not like an on-off switch. Like I can take this nutrient and it's going to improve my energy. There's all these different pathways with and our systems that are have checks and balances, so to speak. So what happens is you can turn one on, but the other one will regulate it. So when I look at how to address an issue, I look at, well, what's the mechanism, what's that pathway, and how are we intervening in that particular pathway? So there are a lot of nutrients that go really, really well with, for instance, C60. So understand what C60 does, and then understand what your other nutrients do, and how they're going to, improve, your cellular function, for instance. So C60 is this incredible antioxidant that protects your mitochondria, and helps, slow down aging, slow down disease progression in a lot of different tissues. I would, without a doubt, look at adding things that support mitochondrial biogenesis, or the formation of new mitochondria. And then I'd also look at, well, how do we improve the cell's energy through nutrients that support the production of ATP, or our body's energy? So there are B vitamins, there's derivatives of B vitamins that I think are great adjuncts to it. For instance, the downstream of niacin, NAD, NMN, and NR are all very, very important for the production of ATP. And these nutrients are great adjuncts to C60 and to improving mitochondrial energy and mitochondrial function. So those are some of the things that I will use to stack on a regular basis, in addition to, obviously, mitoblast being one of my core nutrients for the last 20 plus years.
So how can people access Mitoblast? If we drop in a link here, are they able to buy it from your store?
Yeah, you can go to mitoblast.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. mitoblast.com. And as a special, if they put in, when they're checking out, if they put in save 15, they'll save 15% on Mitoblast.
So the coupon code is save 15.
Yep, save 15.
Okay, cool. What's the difference between Mitoblast 1 and Mitoblast 2?
So when I first initially formulated Mitoblast, I started to read about the benefits of EGCG, which is the antioxidant in green tea. So Mitoblast 2 has green tea in it, and EGCG. And EGCG is just an incredible nutrient that's involved with, so many different benefits to the body, that I thought it was that important to add it to the formula, the initial formula.
I want to ask you this question without giving away all your secrets.
Yeah.
But I noticed there's some ingredients in here that I'm familiar with, and there's some that I'm not. But I know quercetin is in here. So can you talk to us about the importance of quercetin to support mitochondrial health?
Yeah, sure. So quercetin is an incredible ingredient, and it's found in things like capers and onions. It has antioxidant qualities. So anything that reduces potential injury to the mitochondria can definitely benefit it. And so there's a lot of different theories of aging. One of them is that kind of oxidative stress. And so we know that antioxidants in the body can neutralize some of the things that can injure the cell's ability to function, and specifically the mitochondria. Quercetin is one of those. But it also has some anti-aging effects to it. It's got senolytic-like properties, helps cells do what they're supposed to do, and eliminate cells that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So there's some great benefits with that, especially from an aging standpoint. Quercetin's one of my favorite nutrients, and the addition of that was huge for that, the blend that we put together.
Please correct me if I'm mispronouncing this, but L-arginine. What's the benefit of L-arginine?
Yeah, so we use a specific form of arginine. It's arginine alpha ketoglutarate, and so arginine is one of the amino acids that is involved with the stimulation and production of nitric oxide. So, and nitric oxide has very powerful benefits from the standpoint of mitochondrial biogenesis, or making new mitochondria. It's also very, very important for our arteries. We know that the higher your nitric oxide levels are, the healthier your arteries are. They help with the what they call the endovascular, the inside of your arteries. They're involved with the relaxation of the arteries. And also in endurance. We've seen that nitric oxide is really important for, if you're getting blood flow to those muscles, your endurance is better. So we'll see improvements in VO2 max in patients that, aren't elite athletes when they improve their nitric oxide levels.
Awesome. One of the things I failed to mention at the beginning of this conversation is that you are a passionate, avid athlete yourself. You play tennis, you do other sports, and you also work with a tremendous amount of retired and current professional athletes. So, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the supplements that, whether retired or current, athletes that are really focused on performance? What are the supplements, in addition to the ones we've already talked about, that are included in either the morning routine or some point throughout the day that you recommend to your patients who are specifically interested in supporting performance, like you said, endurance, and just recovery?
Pretty simple. So, from a performance standpoint, besides improving mitochondrial support, so mitoblast being one of the core nutrients, and then I'll use either NAD plus in oral form or injectable form. I also will use NMN, which I really, really like. I haven't really found NR work as well, but sometimes I will use that. CoQ10, and those are some of the nutrients that improve ATP production and mitochondrial function. So mitoblast with some form of either NMR, NAD, or NR as part of it. I love ketones. So in the morning, what I suggest is using ketone esters in addition to the C60 and I do it every morning in my coffee, and I absolutely love it. And the ketone esters are a much better form of some of the ketone salts that have been out, on the marketplace. They have a much higher level of ketones. So for some of the people that don't know what ketones are, so when our body burns all of its carbohydrates up, it starts to burn fat, and the body turns fat into a ketone called beta hydroxybutyrate. And this particular ketone is incredible fuel for the brain. It's got neuroprotective effects and works really, really well, and you don't get these energy cutoffs. So the combination of MCT, C60, ketone with a little bit of caffeine in the coffee is phenomenal for kind of this mental energy when you first wake up, and you get a long-lasting effect, which is great. So that's kind of that mental performance, which I think is really, really important, and energy in the morning time. Combining that with a mitochondrial supplement like Mitoblast, CoQ10, and then NMR or NAD. That's kind of the basis of the morning kind of regimen that I would recommend. I do like nitric oxide supplements. Sometimes also, if I can't get the nitric oxide levels elevated with Mitoblast, I'll add a either beetroot juice naturally in the diet, or some type of beetroot pill or powder or something like that into their program. And that also great for endurance and great for improving blood flow during exercise.
Awesome. So I don't know if the weather where you're at has started to change yet. I'm in Colorado, so I'm curious, moving into the fall season and the kids are going back to school. So, typically when we see the seasons change, the sniffles, the regular sniffles, cough, flu, all sorts of stuff, plus all the other fun stuff that we're dealing with right now in our environment can come back. So, can you talk to us a little bit about your favorite supplements, vitamins, or minerals that you recommend and or use yourself to help support immune function before anything comes your way, whether it's exposure to the flu and cold season or you want to stay healthy and strong no matter how many people you're around, or whether, if you're under stress or traveling.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about those basic supplements, vitamins, and nutrients that you think are kind of critical every day to support immune function.
Sure. So the number one supplement that I would tell you the majority of people need is vitamin D.
Yep.
And vitamin D is this incredible hormone that upregulates both arms of your immune system, the adaptive um, immune system, which is your T cells and your B cells, um, and also the non-specific immune system. So if and making sure that you know what your vitamin D level is. And the problem is that we weren't trained in medical school or residency stating, hey, you need to be at this particular level. And there's, big discrepancies when you look at the ranges. The ranges aren't optimal levels. The ranges are the ranges that they find in people. So when you look at a lab range, it could be anywhere from 35 to probably 70. And you really, if you look at clinical studies, you want to be around 60 or higher. And that's based on studies, for instance, a vitamin D level of 35 versus a vitamin D level of 60. There was a study that looked at breast cancer in women, and there was a 40% reduction at the higher level. So to me, that tells me that's more of an optimal level to be at that 60 range. So it's an incredible anti-inflammatory. It's an incredible immune stimulator. It helps with brain function, heart function. So one of the best things that you can do is make sure that you're taking vitamin D. Most adults on the low end of about 2,000 IUs to about 10,000 IUs. I'd say the majority of my patients are on about 5,000. And I combine vitamin D with vitamin K2, and there's a reason. Vitamin D helps your body absorb calcium, so you want to make sure that your body doesn't just put calcium anywhere, especially in the heart arteries or valves. So vitamin K2 basically tells the body store the calcium in the bones. And there's studies with vitamin K2 in osteopenia and osteoporosis. So you can utilize vitamin K2 specifically to port that calcium in the place that we need it, which is to keep our bones nice and strong. The second nutrient that I think is incredible, and initially I didn't, it's not a very, what I call sexy nutrient, is zinc. Zinc is used for our bodies to kill viruses, bacteria, and it's very, very important. And when I started looking at clinical studies with zinc, I was really surprised at the benefits of zinc. And then also when I started looking at zinc levels in my patients, I was like, wow, this is a nutrient that's pretty depleted in a lot of people. And I looked at my zinc level over 20 years ago, and I remember I'm like, man, I was not, at that time, I was pretty much eating very, very well, and my levels were low. And I'm like, how can I have low levels? I mean, with everything that I eat, the variety of everything that I eat. So, just because you eat well doesn't mean that you don't have nutrient depletions. And I would tell you that most people have nutrient depletions, and optimal levels are important to reach. Understanding what those levels are and then supplementing appropriately is the route to go.
What about good old fashioned vitamin C?
Yeah, so vitamin C, I do like. I think vitamin C's got great health benefits across the board. I prefer to use vitamin C not on a daily basis, because you get a lot of times if you're eating, a diet that's full of colorful fruits and vegetables, you're getting plenty of vitamin C, right? So do you need to take any extra? Too much vitamin C can increase your risk for kidney stones. So, living in the kidney belt with tea, not the best combination to say take vitamin C every day. I think when you're sick, boosting it, I think, is a good thing. But as a preventative, yeah, probably not the thing that I'm going to want to bump up my immune cells for, right? There's some mushroom extracts, the beta-1,3-glucan, which is in some of these hybrid mushrooms, really good stimulator of like natural killer cells. It's a regimen that I do recommend for some of my patients that are more prone to getting sick. The kicker is understanding why the immune system's suppressed, right? Is it because they're not sleeping? Is it because of medications and so on and so forth that they're on? So it's really understanding causes of why someone's immune system is suppressed. But vitamin D, hands down, number one thing I'd recommend everyone to be on. Zinc, making sure your zinc levels are good. Understanding those nutrient levels are important for sure.
For our listeners out there who don't live anywhere near you, uh, if they want to go to their doctor and get their levels checked, what are the best blood tests that they should request?
Vitamin D can be done pretty much with any lab. So you can get vitamin D. Most of the labs will do zinc levels. They'll do an RBC zinc level, which is a little more accurate level for zinc. If you want to get kind of full spectrum nutrient panels, there's a handful of companies that are out there. Most of the docs, unless you're going to a doc that does more integrative or natural medicine, probably doesn't utilize these and wouldn't know. But Vibrant America is one of the labs that I'll use. Genova is another. So those are two labs that you can look for nutrient panels. You know, and they are great ways of monitoring what you're doing, so you know that you're getting the right nutrients in the right doses.
All right, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Since you have such a robust background in nutrition science, if you had only 5 foods that you could eat every day that you felt like were the most nutritious and healthy, and we're going to eliminate everything else, and you're like, these are critical
Right.
to your diet, what 5 foods would you say, listen, just if you can, get these in as frequently as you can?
Okay, well, for sure, top of that list is going to be salmon, and the reason is that salmon is loaded with omega-3s, and the benefits of omega-3s are incredible. So what omega-3s do is in your body, they turn into your body's natural anti-inflammatory molecules. So the omega-3s, DHA and EPA, have been studied for heart health. They've been studied for brain health. And when you get high enough doses, they're going to convert to these molecules called marsins and resolvins, and they resolve inflammation. And so when they looked at how do you improve brain health and heart health, well, anything that lowers inflammation is going to improve it. So salmon, definitely. The other thing is the salmon's one of the better sources of vitamin D. So not only am I getting my omega-3s now, I'm getting my vitamin D, probably one of the best foods for that. And then there's some other antioxidants in salmon, like astaxanthin, which are also very, very good. So salmon for sure would be top of that list. The next, which is interesting, I would say would be broccoli. And broccoli has this incredible antioxidant in it called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is an incredible antioxidant that has just some great long-term benefits in the body, everything from brain health to, anti-cancer. It's been studied in. So I would say, salmon, broccoli would be probably 2 out of the top, in that realm. Other foods, I like both blueberries, probably because of resveratrol, and the antioxidant effects of resveratrol in blueberries. Capers, because of quercetin, I mentioned that previously. It comes down to kind of those superfoods with nutrients. I'm a big fan of eating really lean proteins and healthy proteins, right? So you need amino acids in your diet. And the problem with plant-based amino acids is that you have to have combinations of plants. So I can't tell you, like if you combined beans and rice and like a sweet potato, for instance, like sweet potato probably would be on that list, just because the nutrients that are in that. But there's not one that I would say in the plant, just because it's not a complete protein. It doesn't contain those essential amino acids. And what amino acids are important for is they make up your enzymes. They make up, they heal your tendons, they make up your muscles, they make up those neurotransmitters for your brain. So you have to have a good source of protein in the diet, whether it's, again, coming from fish or coming from some form of lean meat and protein. So from a amino acid standpoint, animal products. From an inflammatory standpoint, I would rather go more towards plant-based products.
Okay,
So
that
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
it's a tough question because, I think, colorful vegetables and fruits are incredible because of all the antioxidants that are in there. So I like the blend. It's not like I look for one particular food that would get me to where I want to be. The downside, I think, to fruit is the fruit sugar. Fructose has can really be harmful for the body because it kind of bypasses the normal liver regulation of sugars, and it'll form what we call de novo fat, in the fat cells. So it will stimulate your fat cells to produce fat without having the liver have that process. So it's one of those things where I think a little bit of that is actually really good for you in the diet.
I threw a curveball at you, so I think you navigated that awesome. Like you did an amazing job. So what I hear you saying is, salmon and eat the rainbow and incorporate lean protein. Is that accurate?
Pretty much. And I really, really like certain seeds and certain nuts too because of the trace minerals that you get out of them. So pumpkin seeds, great source of zinc and magnesium. Um, Walnuts, great source of omega-3s and healthy fats. And so, those are really good things to have in your system because the body just runs better when it has all the nutrients to repair itself. Because that's the goal: is give your body the nutrients to repair itself so it runs at a high level.
Do you have an opinion when people are asking, hey, should I, if my only choice is farmed salmon and it's really hard for me to get wild caught, like what's your thought about if the quality of the lean meat that you're going to get could be questionable?
Yeah,
And it's hard in this day and age because
it really is.
there's supply chain issues and things are constantly changing. So it's for people that are trying to be on the cleanish path.
Right.
Sometimes you have to deviate, especially if you're traveling or there's just a supply chain issue.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great question. Farm raised versus wild. I would always suggest wild. Several years back, I know our government allowed modification of salmon, like genetic modification of salmon. I was really, really upset with that. As long as farm raised, the nutrients that the salmon is getting are healthy, and the problem is you just don't know, then what you're eating is what that salmon eats. It's the same with cows. Like, grass-fed beef is going to be healthier because grass has higher omega-3s in it, whereas corn-fed cows, the high sugar content of corn is going to cause the fat to be more inflammatory, and that's going to cause more chronic inflammation in the body when you're consuming that. So a lot of it has to do with and not really knowing what they're doing and how they're feeding. It's hard for me to really say. I would say always you're better off with something that's caught wild, um, especially, from that. But then, the other big issue is, well, what about, heavy metal toxicity? Because that's the other thing that
Yeah.
commonly be asked about is heavy metal toxicity. And the answer is when I look at environmental toxicity panels in patients, every single person has toxins. So it's not like, am I going to find them? It's like, no, you're going to have them. It's what's the degree and how well is your body detoxing from that, And so, and our body has several mechanisms to detox everything from, going to the bathroom, pooping is probably the best. So fiber is one of those really, really important things that not only feeds the microbiome, but also helps you eliminate a lot of these toxins. Sweating, making sure your liver's functioning, and then urinating, and those are the things that kind of help improve it. And so, are we going to get more heavy metals from fish if our oceans are dumped full of all the stuff that's in our environment? Of course we are. And I think looking at those levels is appropriate, especially if you're like me, a majority of a pescatarian, because that's what I eat every day is fish. So
Mhm. Well, you're in an environment too where you have great access to fish. In Colorado, it's a little different because we have to fly it in from somewhere unless we can get some good trout. But it's really good to know. Can you talk to us a little bit about just best practices to support sleep, and if there's any supplements that are supportive to sleep. Like, I don't know if you should take Mitoblast in the morning or at night. Like, help us understand sleep.
Sure. Sleep is difficult because there are so many reasons people don't sleep, right? The most important thing I think with sleeping is one, make sure your environment is the right environment. So you don't have any electronics on, right? Your phone is not around you. You don't have any blue light around. Your room should be dark. Don't try to go to bed at night with the TV on or, music or those types of things, because that stimulates your mind. The other thing is go to bed at the same time and try to wake up at the same time. And you have to be diligent about that. I started looking at my sleep 4 months ago. I started wearing an app, a Whoop, and looking at the hours of sleep, my light sleep, and then my REM and my deep sleep. And what I realized was cognitively and energetically, I was much better when my deep sleep was better, which kind of makes sense, right? And so what I was doing over the last 6 months or so is figuring out, well, what can I do to improve my deep sleep? And one of the simplest things that really, really worked for me was using earplugs. And how this out like, and I didn't think about it initially when I was looking at my numbers. I was like, let me just collect data for a month. Let me see kind of where things sit, and then and kind of go from there. And what happened is I was hunting in Texas several years back, and some of the guys that I hunt with all are overweight, and most of them have sleep apnea and snore really, really loudly. And I remember I couldn't sleep because of either the CPAP machines or the snoring. And I went into my bag, grabbed some earplugs, put my earplugs in, and had this incredible restful sleep. And I felt energetic that morning when I went to go hunt. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Maybe I'll try that. And I did. And there's a direct correlation, at least in me, with when I use earplugs and the ability for me to get into deep sleep and dream more. So that was something that was simple that I found out. Some of the nutrients that I like to help with sleep, certain magnesiums, magnesium trionate actually crosses the blood-brain barrier. Magnesium is a very calming mineral, and it's used to calm your muscles. So I love magnesium at night. Making sure there's a little bit of magnesium trionate in that, I think, would be appropriate. And I would start off at, maybe 250 milligrams to 500 milligrams at night, and just kind of see how your body does with that. Melatonin's been studied. Melatonin's interesting. Some people get a stimulatory effect of melatonin and don't feel well, or they feel groggy in the morning with melatonin. Melatonin's released by the pineal gland, and it regulates our daytime and nighttime cycles. And it's got a very, very protective anti-inflammatory effect for the brain and the body. So it is a really, really good hormone that our body produces, and sometimes a little bit of melatonin can be part of that. The other thing, lavender, for instance, lavender has a very soothing, calming effect. Doing an Epsom salt bath, which is magnesium that has lavender in it, before you go to bed, could be a great way of relaxing your muscles and allowing that to improve. There's a whole slew of other natural herbs that can do it. One of the ones that sometimes I'll suggest when my patients say, doc, I'm stressed. It's hard for me to kind of stop thinking about things during to go to bed. And L-theanine, which is an amino acid from green tea, great for anxiety. I usually start at around 400 milligrams at night. So that's another one that I'll use to help with sleep. So there's a lot of adrenal adaptogens that can regulate that cortisol, everything from melatonin to L-theanine to ashwagandha, that can kind of reduce that cortisol output that maybe causes you to wake up early, or makes you a little more restless in the evenings.
Mitoblast.
Oh, Mitoblast, yeah.
You take it in the morning, or you take it at night?
So I would take it in the morning time for sure. Now, I've been on it for such a long time that I can take um, a significant amount in the evenings and still go to bed. So there's a little bit of natural caffeine, and there's about per capsules, there's 4 milligrams because of the natural caffeine that's in green tea. So if you're any caffeine sensitive, I wouldn't take it. Comparison, a cup of coffee is about 100 to 120 milligrams of caffeine. So it's a very, very mild amount. Um, it's interesting because one of the things that arginine will increase growth hormone in the evening time, especially if there's no carbohydrates at night. So you can actually upregulate your growth hormone by taking arginine in the evenings. And growth hormones that restorative hormones. So it helps with sleep. It helps you feel more rested when you wake up. It's also very important for supporting your muscles, keeping your body lean. So it helps you keep your muscle mass on and helps you burn fat. So I do take it in the evenings. It does not bother me, but I can have an espresso at dinner time and go to bed and have absolutely no problems falling asleep or staying asleep. And I monitor that. My wife, on the other hand, she can't have coffee after probably 9 or 10 in the morning. It'll keep her up. So, so everyone's a little bit different. I would say take it in the morning for sure, or early afternoon. And the therapeutic dose is 4 pills in the morning and 4 pills in the early afternoon. Most people that I start on that, I don't start with that much, but when I looked at clinical studies of all the ingredients, I wanted to make sure every ingredient was at a clinical level. That's the dosing that I came up with to get at those clinical levels. So, you can take a nutrient, but if it's not at the level that it needs to be to get its clinical effect, you're not going to get the effect.
That's a great reminder. It's really, really a great reminder. Um, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a fascinating conversation. Before we part ways, do you have any words of wisdom for our audience, for somebody who might feel perhaps overwhelmed by all the choices and not quite sure where to start, taking back control over their health? Any just grounding final messages about simple steps and actions that you can take today to start moving in the right direction?
Yeah. The thing that I see all the time is people aren't balanced. Sleep probably being the most important thing, because sleep releases over 18 different hormones that can affect your body in a bad way. So cortisol gets upregulated. We know high levels of cortisol have a horrible downstream effect from, messing up all your hormones, from thyroid, estrogen, testosterone, messing up your bones, increasing your risk for cancers, reducing your immune system's ability to fight infections. Okay, so balance 100%. You have to be balanced. So you have to look at, am I exercising? Am I sleeping? Is my nutrition? If you don't start there, none of the nutrients are going to benefit you, right? It may help you offset a little bit of that, but they're not going to get you to the point that you need to be. The nutrients are what's going to put you over the top, as part of that. And, to me, what I realize is that if you want to live healthier, make sure that your cells are healthy. How do you affect your cells? Well, make sure that, the oxidative stress isn't really, really high. Make sure that the energy production is high. So things like C60, for instance, to reduce the oxidative stress and to lower that, to support the cell's health, and then focusing on stimulating more mitochondria, new mitochondria, because as we age, after the age of 30, we lose our mitochondria drastically. The brain, the heart, and the muscles are kind of the three biggest places that our mitochondria are needed, because that's where most of the energy is utilized. So there are ways that you can help improve and reduce and even increase your mitochondria, so you don't have to, feel tired as you get older. Because when you don't have a lot of mitochondria, it's not producing a bunch of energy, you're going to feel tired, right? Your brain's not going to function. And we know that pretty much every neurologic disease is related to some form of, mitochondrial dysfunction. So I would say support your mitochondria, look at supplements that support mitochondrial function, look at supplements that are antioxidants. Start there, but you have to start with your balance first and make sure that your sleep is good, because otherwise you're burning the candle at both ends, and the nutrients aren't going to protect you enough to get the benefit that you're looking for.
Such an important message. Thank you so much, Anthony, for your time today. And I look forward to having you back again in the future.